Good morning. Today is Monday, April 14th, 2024. Things are, thank God, calming down Middle East. So peace is coming between Iran and Israel. And if you might not believe it, but I believe it's coming. People come to their senses. And then the many, many centuries of rationalizations, of evolution, of approach, just like happened to us. The Jews, for 3,000 years, we kept refining attitude, starting from idol worshippers, eventually becoming Jews, coming to the light of God. The same thing will go through all other nations. And now we're witnessing the period of enlightenment, but not in enlightenment in a historical sense, what happened to the Judaism in like 200 some years ago. Not enlightenment that diluted Judaism to some point, and now we're recovering from that. But evolution of the thoughts, humanity learning to become more acceptable, more tolerant, more loving, and more peaceful. Anyway, so we are on Tanya, book of Tanya over here on chapter 40. Yesterday we talked about difference between angels and people. Which ones can get to the higher level? We said that angels are similar to animals, and in a very funny, strange way, because angels don't have a freedom of choice, and animals don't have a freedom of choice. Animals do things mechanically, and angels do everything spiritually, but also mechanically. Therefore, humans, great tzaddikim especially, have ability to go to the higher level, the four worlds. Absolute is the lowest world, and then Yetzirah, that's the level of angels. And then the level of Beriah, one higher, this level of humans who can reach. A portion of our soul can reach that level. We discussed it yesterday, if you saw that review yesterday, the clip. Well, today is chapter 40. We'll continue the power of Kabbalah, how we can create angels. So when we talked about also a couple of days ago that the minimum requirements is, of course, we have thought, speech, and action. The main requirements when you do words of prayer, to enunciate the words, to speak it, not only to think it. And if you're in great devotion, quietly praying, that is wonderful, but it's not sufficient, not enough. That prayer by itself, not acceptable. If you're saying the words, wrote, and without, you got distracted, that actually acceptable. Not good enough, but acceptable. The ideal thing is to have both. To pray with the words, quietly, so you don't disrupt other people around you, quietly. So people don't get mad at you. Listen, I can't pray, I can't concentrate. You're talking next to me. Well, you have to quietly, but you can hear yourself very, very quietly, and you have to have a covenant. So now, chapter 40 talks about power of covenant, how we create angels in our prayers. The concept here that is our prayer authentic, is it neutral or inauthentic? Inauthentic. What does it mean? The authentic prayer, if you're praying with a full kavanah, if you're neutral, like you're saying the words, but you're not fully engaged in a spiritual connection, that's a second option. And third one, if you're doing with an ulterior motive, I want to study Torah because I want to be a great rabbi, I'll have a great position, I'll be very famous. Well, that's a problem. The first case, if you're authentic, two things happen. You bring your soul on the upper worlds in connection with God, and upper worlds. Now, Tanya is bringing the anatomy of the upper worlds. It talks about every world has chambers that you can walk in, so to speak, spiritually speaking, and the lights. Those are 10 Sfirot of divine illumination. Through 10 Sfirot, you can merge with them. You talked this earlier. You can merge with these lights and experience unity with God. Not closeness even, but even more than that, unity that you cannot achieve even in the world to come. So you can get, with a good kavanah, you can get approach to the next world. Let's work the Yetzirah, or maybe work on Beriah, and very, very rarely, very seldom individual even can the world absolute to the highest world. It's hard to describe. So, that's an optimal situation. If you're doing in a neutral mode, that you're praying to God but you're not fully concentrated, your prayer is getting there, but it's not really fully accepted, but it's not lost. So the next time if you repeat it, let's say do the mitzvah, talk about mitzvah, and you do the mitzvah, okay, I can help this person, fine. But you don't fully concentrate on the fact that that's the right thing to do. I have to help people. Then it's stuck. But then the next time you do it, you go to help the old lady bring her soup, and she cannot go to the store, and you have to help her out. The second day, the third day, now the mitzvah you did before without the intent gets unstuck and goes up to the upper world, where it merges with the 10 Sfirot, with the divine light. And if you do it for selfish purposes, I want to be a great rabbi because I will be famous, it's actually going down and get stuck in a klipot, world of klipot. That's not a good thing. Now, it's not a negative thing, it's not a sin, it just doesn't go anywhere. But if you do teshuvah, if you understand, he says, listen, it was kind of silly and selfish for me to study that Torah just to become a great rabbi so I'll be famous. If you understand how selfish it is and kind of egotistic it is, then it gets unstuck and goes up and it goes to merges with the lights. Not just sitting in the vessels, in the rooms, in cubicles to wait for that. So those three things, doing with authentic prayer, authentic mitzvah, or doing superficially, or doing even for selfish purposes. So in Talmud, we also studied that if you study Torah, if you pray, even if you do selfish purposes, it's better than not doing it all, because eventually, Talmud says, if you do it for the, just for the, my father did, my grandfather did, so I do it. I don't really feel much about it, but do it even in that case. It's better not to go to a baseball game to watch, but it's time to go for the prayers. But as long as you do it because you have to, it's still better than not do it at all. It will eventually grow. Tanya is saying it's a guarantee that eventually you, sooner or later, 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, 50, it will get you and you'll wake up and you'll do it. And then all these stuck prayers and stuck mitzvot that didn't go up to the lights will go to the light. And Tanya shows about interesting concept. Once it merges, 10 worlds, once it goes to the world and not sitting in a chamber, which is without kavanah, but merges. Imagine there is a chamber like a room and there's a lights illuminating it. Lights are integral with God. Chambers, you're sitting there, you're observing God. It's a great bliss, but you're not one with it. So if you actually go into the level of merging with lights, once you merge with one, remember before we studied that all 10 Sfirot, all the upper world, contained in each Sphira or the lower world, and on and on and on. So it becomes like a connecting thread. Once you go to the Chokhmah of the world of Yetzirah, let's say the next world, once you go to that level, then we'll connect to the world, also to Chokhmah of the world of Beriah, and then to the world of Atzilut, and then to Ein Sof. It's like a little conduit, a thread. It goes in and you connect. So some people can go close immediately into the world of Beriah and then to the light, Ein Sof. Or some people can only reach the level of Yetzirah, or maybe even salute this world. But once you reach that level, it depends on individual circumstances, right? Intent, ability to, not everybody has ability, that's okay, we all made differently. But ultimately, no matter which level you reach, then you'll connect it up. It's like a bunch of elevators in a high-rise building, they're all going up. And some people jump on the level 10 and start 10 and then go to level 15. And some people jump level 2 or 3, or even exactly on 14 and go one step. But they're all going in the same direction. Good analogy? Well, that's through the lights, not through the chambers. So the Torah continues talking about, then it compares what's the difference between doing Torah studies without intent, rote, or doing non-sacred talk. Like let's talk about baseball game. Well, it says, if you talk about non-baseball game, that really doesn't credit you. And it's not bad, It's not prohibited, but it's like you're wasting your time. We talked about this before. If you talk about Torah without intent, it's also not a fully, but it's still better than talking about baseball. So if you talk about Torah because you're a rabbinical student, and if you want to become a great rabbi, and you're debating with your students, with your colleagues all day long, Torah, you're not fully even immersed into it spiritually, but you're doing this, you're still excited about it, you're debating, you're arguing, you're studying, you're learning. It's still better than discussing, baseball game all day long. Nothing wrong about occasional baseball game, but if your life essentially baseball game, the basketball game, volleyball game, and that's your life,